All right. Welcome to an hour with my mom. I have an old friend who I haven't talked to in a long time with us, Dolores, today. And Dolores, maybe we can get started by telling us who is your hour with today?
Today, I'd love to spend an hour with my son, Eric. He passed away in 2017. He was 24 years old. He was in a car accident, and there's just a lot to talk about with Eric.
Mhm. There it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you for doing this, and thank you for bringing Eric into the space. And um, I said I'd share a bit about how this came about. So, this was probably about 2 months ago now, a month and a half ago. I was talking with a colleague at work and just kind of reflecting on some positives, some successes that have happened lately. And it just, you know how grief is, it comes in the most random of times. And so I'm having this conversation with my colleague, and as they're talking, I thought, man, I wish I could talk to my mom. I wish I could share with her everything that's happened right now.
Yeah.
And I started to think, if only I had an hour with my mom, I would tell her that I'm proud of her. And I would just thank her. I would thank her for being a little girl who grew up in the projects of Miami, Florida, to making it to allowing me to be able to travel the world and travel to be able to use my gifts to help people. And there was just a profound sense of appreciation for her, but then also a profound sense of sadness. And so it just kept sitting with the theme of, if only I had an hour with my mom, what would I do with her? And what would I tell her? And that spawned the idea of, let me talk to other people about grief. Because also, um, I have experienced, and I'd love to hear your experience about this, but society seems to have implicit shelf life on grief. And
Yes.
after the person passes away, there is a sense that, like, you should be okay, or you should be healed. And what I realized, Dolores, is that I could talk about my mom forever. And I'm still learning. I'm learning so many new things about myself and just my relationship with her, and seeing her in the
Yeah.
world through different eyes. Um, so this is an opportunity for me to bring her into the space, and also allow other people to bring their loved ones into the space.
That is so beautiful. And I cannot agree with you more about, I love the way you put it, that there's a shelf life. Like there's only so long that people are willing to hear about your loved one who's passed away. And then after a while, why are you still posting pictures? And I mean, why wouldn't I? And so I'm so appreciative of this platform that you have now to allow for this conversation. And I think it's important. So thank
Hmm.
you.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. So tell us about Eric.
Ooh, okay. Well, Eric, and I've got a few things here eventually I'll pull up for you.
Absolutely.
But so Eric was the youngest of my four children. He actually was not expected, and there
Oh,
he
really?
came.
Okay.
At the time, I was a little, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Four children, and that just, that's a lot. And boy, did it become clear he was absolutely meant to be here. And
Mm,
of course, was, such a joy, so much fun, such really followed in his siblings' footsteps and was right up there with them. So smart. Did the usual, played baseball as a kid from kindergarten, actually through about ninth grade. That was a lot of fun to spend time with him doing that. The whole family enjoyed that. He and his siblings got along so beautifully. There were the typical disagreements, but really overall, all four of my kids have been always so close. And what I would love to say about Eric, one of my favorite things is that he was a drummer, and his older. So I mean, I came from a family of musicians. Basically, my mother played violin quite well. Um, couldn't do it as much when she had her family back in the '60s. That wasn't something women were encouraged to do, was to keep pursuing something else. But it was there, and we heard it. We heard her practice from time to time. And my older brother Steve, was an amazing musician. Now he was born with congenital heart defect, which did shorten his life. So he
Mm.
passed away at age 26 when I was 20,
Oh.
and that was very painful. He was so gifted and so amazing. So there's this, musicianship in the family. Then my younger brother Mark is a drummer, and he was also Eric's godfather. And so when Eric watched, would see Mark play, and when Eric was 9, he told us that he really wanted to get a drum set, and we said, that's great, but we couldn't just run out and buy one. They're expensive, and
Mhm.
save. We told him to save his money, and he did. About 2 years later, my brother Mark, his godfather, took him to pick out a good kit for a kid, or one to grow into as well. And I remember when they brought it home and Mark set it up for him, and Eric played every day, practiced every day. I don't recall when he didn't,
Mm.
and it never bothered me. I could take a nap while he was practicing drums. I mean, it was, I think it's just coming from this musician family. It was just wonderful to just have that. It was great. And so we had him in drum lessons for about 3 years. Well, in middle school, by high school he was in orchestra for 4 years and drumline. And then by the time he got to college, he found his bandmates. He found other guys that were musicians, and they put a band together, called Jubilo Drive, which was named after the street that one of the guitarists lived on. And they were awesome. What can I say? I mean, they did write most of what they performed was their own music. They did a couple of covers, of other pieces, other songs. And my greatest joy was when I could go to one of their gigs and stand there. These are like smaller venues, of course. You don't sit down, you stand. I
Standing
learned.
room only, yeah.
I was like, oh, there's nowhere. Okay, I guess we're standing. So we stand, and you know, the loud rock music never bothered me. Again, I grew up with my brother and his music, so that was just in me. And it was a joy. And Eric would always, at some point, maybe once or twice, look over at me and give me, like, the head nod, and just that smile was just awesome. And so that was just quite a joy. He was honestly such a kind and compassionate person, and I always thought so. But afterwards, when people gathered and talked about him, told stories about him, that's what everyone said. And one of the things they said is he had a way of making anyone he had just met feel important. He would take the time to look at them and ask them questions and talk to them. Even we have some friends, my husband and I have some friends our age who recalled that a few months before, well, at that previous New Year's Eve, when they had come over to our house for dinner, just for the four of us, but Eric was still here before he had gone out for the evening, and he sat down and talked with them for a while. And I remember our friend John saying, what young guy will sit around with a bunch of old people and just talk?
Yeah.
And so, yes, he really made the world a better place. He had offered so much kindness, and I believe that continues to ripple out to the world. That's my
Mm.
belief. And when
Mm.
we are here, all the love that we offered, I'm sure the same with your mom, it still continues. It reverberates. And so that's just kind of a quick, you know, little bit about Eric.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It does. And it's fascinating that you say that, like the love and the kindness, like those are things I feel too that reverberate. And I think a lot about what is the essence of my mom. And for my
Mm.
mom, she was dealing with dementia before she passed away. And as dementia was progressing, first of all, before the dementia, I there was a lot of worry. I feel like I probably Googled, dementia symptoms 50 billion times, just in
Mm.
this anxiety of, okay, is this just normal aging or is this dementia or other kind of memory issues? And when she started to, when the dementia progressed, I just remember feeling completely at a loss, completely devastated. You know, your mind goes to different places. But for me, trying to really hold on to what was her essence, what is the essence of my mom, regardless of what happens to her memory. And for me, I settled on her essence was love and kindness and joy. And even if she got to a place of forgetting things, forgetting people, forgetting stories, her smile just exuded this kindness. And that was something that I held on to. And connecting that to you, it's interesting how you connect that to Eric's kindness, his compassion, and that's something that seems like still very much colors your view, your life now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We, you've probably heard other people say this, but we think of Eric, or we honor Eric, I guess I could say, by doing the same for others as well.
Mm.
So there are times where I've done something that I, for someone else, maybe a stranger, that I knew somehow as it was coming to my mind to go do this, I knew Eric would do it,
Mm.
and therefore I just wanted to honor him that way and continue what he taught us and continue to do that for others. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Dolores, can you share with us? So, I'm sorry, you said it's been 7 years since he passed
seven and a
away?
half. Yes,
Seven and a
yes.
half years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can you talk about what's your journey of grief been
Mm,
like? Because you know, one thing I like, I'm approaching 2 years of my mom's passing,
mm-hmm.
and um, I thought the year was gonna be some big landmark of like, okay, I just need to make it to a year, and then I got to a year,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, dang, now I have to make it as long as I'm alive.
Yes, yes, that's true, and that's really hard to swallow. To
Mm-hmm.
be, because yeah, we're just at the beginning, like you said, just kind of getting through, and
Mm-hmm.
then after all those first, holidays and birthdays and things, you're like, oh, I got through it, but then oh, it's not done, and it's not going to be done. We're going to continue this, so it continues to evolve without a doubt. It's there is a misunderstanding that you're going to get over your grief.
Mm-hmm.
I think it will shift and change and evolve as it has, and as I'll describe to you. So it's something that I've learned I am living with, and I accepted that that is what I'm going to do. I have found that I can still have joy,
Mm-hmm.
even though I still carry that grief. Yes, in the beginning of, this was sudden for us. By the way, I've spoken to so many people. I'm part of a couple of support groups, so I've spoken to people about, various, mainly children, but other groups as well. Different manners of passing, and just sometimes, as in your case, you see it coming, it's coming, and there's all that pain as you're anticipating. But then other times it's sudden, like it was with Eric. It was just, it was horrible to get a knock at the door early in the morning where there was a sheriff and a coroner standing there saying, does Eric Cruz live here? And I knew what they were going to say. It was just
You
that
knew?
those, well, I knew because he had not come home, and we knew something was wrong, and he wasn't responding. He wasn't answering the phone or responding to texts, and there had been an accident at about 12:30 a.m. So they were at my door about 5:30 a.m. And so I was, hope, as a parent, you're always kind of picturing the worst, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've done that. I don't know how many times with all my kids.
Yeah, with four
Oh my,
kids.
something
Yeah.
horrible has happened. But this time, it happened, and it was just that awful. I can't explain those few moments of surreal, right? Are they really going to say what I think they're about to say? So it was horrible. My daughter was with me. I had to make the phone call to my husband who was traveling on business in Toronto. That was the awful phone call to make. And of course, all the people that we called, including my other two children who didn't live at home. And I felt like I was in a deep, dark abyss. There was no light, no joy, and I didn't know how I could ever have that again. I, I didn't know how I could live, how I could make it to the next day. Um, it's it's so brutal, I guess, is one way I've heard it described. And all I knew is that I just had to make it to the next moment,
Mm.
make it to the next hour, make it through the next day. And I'm the type of person that does reach out. I was on the phone for a therapist in a few days because I've had therapy in my life before, and I think it's amazing. I think it's great. So that was my natural instinct, and I know that's not what everybody feels comfortable doing. But I got into therapy right away. I was blown away that first weekend. That was a Friday. And by the way, that Sunday was Mother's Day. So this was May 12th, and Sunday was Mother's Day. And it was awful. And there were so many people at our home throughout that weekend. Um, they were his friends, of course, our family. I don't know how many, but the house was loaded. And in all that pain, I felt this love, of course, from them. And it was beautiful. And that's not something that people would normally want to describe in those,
Mm.
but there was, I still have a hard time finding the words to describe how something so terrible could also have this beauty. But it was the response, it was the love that was
Mhm.
coming through. That's what was beautiful. Over time, I started therapy, and I started reading a lot of books. That's another thing I do. That's my thing. People gave me books on grief, and also just on afterlife, I guess, if you want to call it that, and just that continued connection. Which, by the way, my own personal beliefs, I never doubted that Eric was not gone forever. I knew he was in spirit. I knew he was in heaven, however people want to describe that. I knew he was around, and I kept talking to him because I knew he could hear me. So I think that also
You
kind of,
knew.
I just knew. I believed,
Hmm.
and I have to say I knew because I did get some interesting connections soon after that helped me that kind of validated that he is here. So again, that's my belief. I know that's not everyone's belief, but I have no doubt.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been really interesting. So I can, over time, over reading so many books, over talking to people and hearing maybe people on podcasts, also joining a couple of support organizations that were really helpful to me, I started to see the light again. And I did start to see joy, feel joy again. And again, my personality, I never hesitated to let that in. I have heard people say, and I understand this, that if they feel joy again, or if they smile or laugh, that maybe they're being disrespectful to their loved one who has passed. So I understand that is how people feel. I must admit, I never felt that. I always felt that when I allowed something that was funny to make me laugh, I felt Eric was there with me, enjoying whatever was funny. So I think what has helped me is kind of just this connection. I'm going to call it a
Mm.
connection I maintain. Interestingly, my therapist, we never talked about anything spiritual. She was awesome. She was a grief specialist. She was wonderful, saved me. And I don't know, after a month or two, she said something like, well, you will continue to have a spiritual relationship with Eric. And I'm sorry, let me change that.
No.
She said, you'll have a new relationship with Eric. And at the time, this was earlier on, I thought, oh, really? What's that? I didn't get it, but I didn't discount it. I just thought, that's something to think about.
Mhm.
I now totally understand that. And
Mm.
I did start to really understand that also within, I don't know, maybe by the end of the first year. It's really hard for me to pinpoint timelines, but I can
Mhm.
just have a general feel. So I did just start to connect with him in a different way. I would always tell him how much I loved him. I would even just talk to him about things that were going on. I would tell him how much I miss him. And so that really has been, it shifted along the way. Another thing my therapist brought up to me that at the beginning I just said no. She said, "Do you think you have a book in you?" Because I would always read books and tell her about the books. I said,
Uh-huh.
"No, I don't write." I said, "No, I don't think so." And then she asked me again a few months later, and I was like, "Well, I've read a couple books by other parents whose children have passed away, and they just told the story. I think I could probably do that, but I don't know." So anyway, somebody else brought it up, and finally, during when we were all shut down for COVID,
Mhm.
and because I already started getting some real strong ideas about exactly what
Mm.
this book would look like, and when that occurred, and we were home and had nowhere else to go, I said it's
Mhm.
time. I wrote the first book, which is more of a memoir type of book, telling about who Eric was, all that occurred with the accident and his passing, and how it has shifted into something new. And that is something else, then, based on your original question, is that I feel I have moved to a place of really being able to see the beauty in the world around me and really being grateful for that. I know some people don't like that word in the beginning, and that's fine. You don't have to feel grateful in the beginning. You don't have to think
Mhm.
anything's beautiful in the beginning. But it just evolved. I didn't force myself to do anything. I just allowed myself to feel whatever I feel and move however I was organically moving. And eventually I did come to a new joy.
Mm.
So,
So many things. My mind is spinning. I have so
oh,
many like in a good way. In a good way.
okay.
Like the words joy and beauty
Yeah.
stand out to me. And when you mention people coming over the day after the next couple of days, I wonder, did you feel beauty in that moment, or was that only a reflection or upon reflection later?
I recall standing there with all these people around and what they had brought, flowers and
Mhm.
food, and really just having a moment of, I don't think I said to myself, this is beautiful, but I know
Mhm.
I was beholding the beauty.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
was, it was, um, I didn't, it was a surprise. It was just, and I guess it shouldn't be a surprise because I guess people do that. But it was so, because, and I just felt Eric with us in all
Yeah.
that love and beauty. He was still somehow there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the words beauty and joy are really striking to me because I felt those similar things. And
Mm.
previously, I used to work in hospice. And so I'd hear
Ah.
and talk to people, especially children who were preparing for their parents' eventual passing. And I do remember that theme of a lot of people feeling like I can't or I don't want to allow myself to feel X or Y because that will be dishonoring them.
Mm.
And for myself, I feel fortunate for that hospice experience and just kind of life that my mom would not want me to feel down about
Mm.
things. And there was a sense that, okay, I can feel a moment of joy. And immediately after, of course, and for some time, the joy may last for a moment and then the sadness or the reality would come in. Um, but that has given way and a lot of it's given way to just being able to fully feel and embrace joy for what it is and not
Yeah.
feeling like the joy is going to be truncated because of I need to feel something else because of this sadness.
Right. I have learned and found that it's so important to allow whatever you're feeling in
Hmm.
grief, uh, whether that's such pain that you need to express. I think we are to express it. It's there for a reason, and I think there's such a thing as honoring your grief. And I've learned this from, I've even taken some workshops related to all of this that have really helped me. That So whatever the feeling is, some people might think, well, I can't let people see how much pain I'm in, so they cover it, or I can't admit to anyone I might feel a little joy, so they cover it. But let it be, whatever it is.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dolores, can I ask you, you mentioned like that you had a few moments of connection after Eric's, and what term do you prefer to use? Passing, death, like,
Okay, that's an awesome question because people,
yeah.
it's different for everybody.
Hmm.
I've heard speakers and people I admire and look up to, who talk about this, who say, well, it's not death. Well, they don't use death because the person hasn't died. Their spirit continues.
Hmm.
The body dies, yes. And then I've heard other people say, don't avoid that word death. You're trying to get around it. That's what it is. So
Hmm.
yes, it's very different.
Hmm.
Personally, yes, Eric's body died. He is still alive and will be, for eternity, as will
Hmm.
I and you and everybody else. So I do prefer to say passing, or even I've said just transition to the next
Mm.
life,
Hmm.
transition to spirit, just different ways like that. But yeah,
Gotcha, gotcha.
passing's good because it's a
Passing,
passing to, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, to the next life. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. But you said that you felt some connection and it kind of sounds like some experiences where
Hmm.
that confirmed that Eric is still with you. Would you mind sharing some of that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. As these have all occurred, boy, I've got journals for the last 7 years. I write everything down that I get. The first one, it was about 7 or 10 days after his passing. I had gone to Whole Foods and had to get a few things. And as I went in, I saw a couple tables set up outside with a young man, young woman, where they take donations for a good cause. And I recognized it was the DARE program, drug and
Hmm.
alcohol resistance education. And because I'm a retired school teacher, they used to come to our school. It was an awesome program. They worked with the fifth graders, but they hadn't been there in a few years. I thought, oh, there they are. Yeah, I'm happy to donate. Went in, bought a few things, came out, and went up to the young man. Oh, I always forget to preface this. As I told you, I've been talking to Eric from the beginning, telling him what happened. I need you here. I need a hug from you. I love you, and just all that, crying out to him. I go to this young man who happens to look more or less like Eric. His height, his build, his coloring. He had a sweet personality, like Eric, the same age. And I had a quick chat with him about the program and made the donation. He hands me a receipt and he says, "How about a hug?" And who says that? Who have you ever gone to one of those tables outside the store
Right.
and anyone said, "Hey, how about a hug?" It never happened since. Well, before then or since then. In that couple of seconds of a little bit of what, I said, "Yes, I'll always take a hug." And we quick hug, felt like I was hugging my son. And I walked away and I said, "Eric, was that you?" Somehow, I don't know how does that work, I don't know, but I feel in some way that Eric hugged me through this young man, and it felt like I was hugging my son. So I that was enough to just feel like he was saying, "Yep, I'm around, I'm here." I actually also had a beautiful experience. I had learned to do a self guided meditation basically, I don't know if you've ever heard of these, but where you close your eyes, you breathe, you walk through a door, you just imagine you're going through this beautiful place, however you experience, want to experience it, maybe a garden or just some outdoor forest or something, whatever you choose, and you
Mhm.
walk to this place and you sit down and you see your loved one coming, and so we've done this. I learned how to do this, and I see him coming, and they say have him sit down and talk to him a little bit, and then eventually you work your way back. So I had been doing this, and honestly, it made me feel better. So why not, right? I mean, I know I was making it up, but it felt
Mhm.
good. Well, I would do that every night because I always went to bed early because I had to get up early. My husband would stay up a little later, but he usually would lay down with me. We'd chat for 10 minutes and then he'd leave. And for, until he came back later to go to bed. Every time he'd leave, I'd cry because everything from the day was just, I guess I'd held in to some degree, and I would just cry. And then I'd do my meditation. Well, this night I was really tired, and as I started crying, and I said, Eric, I'm really tired. I'm not going to do the whole walking over to you. I'm just going to sit down and see you. So in my mind, I sat down, I see, and I swear in that moment, in my ear, I heard, I'm right here, Mom. I It wasn't in my head. It wasn't something I planned because I planned to look at him and talk to him, but I didn't plan in my ear to hear this. And honestly, I was surrounded by I don't a peace that was not. It was surreal, and it was amazing and beautiful. And I just went to sleep. And next morning, of course, remembered it really well, and I wrote about it. All this stuff is in my books, and um, I don't, all I know is what happened. So I, again, and there have been various other things that I could go on for 2 hours probably, but I won't. But I won't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Wow.
yeah. Those were some of the more obvious ones, and then there have been some very subtle ones as well. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, but
You know, yeah, yeah. How do you make sense of those?
I believe uh, I think I mentioned I grew up, maybe I didn't get into it. I was raised Catholic. I've
Mm.
always believed in God, believed in heaven, believed in all that beautiful stuff. And I, it was always felt good to me. It wasn't anything, I don't even think honestly, I know a lot of people question, which I think is healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I think your spiritual beliefs will grow and grow, if those, whatever they may be, ideally they will evolve. So I never doubted that there's a place, as I already said, that we continue on. But one thing that's changed is I used to think heaven was far away
Mm.
and some place where one day, they're over there and they're good, which of course, but they're with God or however you want to look at it. Um, but I've just in the last few years, just a lot of things I've read, I think that really, uh, as I don't know how much you talk about this you would do on your show, but a quick reference
Mm-hmm.
that the kingdom of God is within, right? And here, and I've come to understand that heaven is here, and sometimes we get these glimpses. I don't think heaven's far away. I think this is God, and uh, you know, or who I believe to be not a man somewhere far away who's telling us, don't do that, don't do this, or don't do that, or judging us. I think God is obviously the creator and the source of all love. And so It's all around. Love is around. Love is here. There's just also, obviously, in this world, just a lot of pain and what looks like opposite of love and terrible things that occur and hatred and all of that. But the love is here and it is around. And sometimes we get an amazing glimpse into heaven. So
Mm,
that's how I see it.
man, I agree with you. And I feel the same way. I
Oh,
feel exactly the same way. I was raised Catholic too.
oh.
And I am a Christian. And my mom, man, in my eulogy to my mom, I wrote about the fact that my mom was so kind and loving allowed me to see a kind and loving God. And she opened
Yes.
a door for me to see kindness. And, you know, I've thought since then, there was a moment I had several months ago. I was at some event and I saw there was a father or a grandfather who looked like he was with his son and he was talking to his grandson and he kind of snapped at him. And of course, this was just a moment in time. I don't know anything about their
Mm-hmm.
relationship, but it made me think like everybody needs gentleness and especially every child needs gentleness. And I just was taken to appreciation that I feel so blessed to have had a mother who was gentle with me.
Yes. That. Yeah.
And yeah, and that she allowed me to have this faith that's deeper than there aren't words that I can really use, but it's a feeling, it's a deep connection. And I've always believed in an afterlife and a heaven and whatnot. But with my mom's death, it really like crystallized it and like solidified it in the way that I felt like the type of connection that my mom and I had in this life. It sounds like you were similar with Eric. That love was too big to be extinguished. It cannot be
Yeah.
extinguished. And so, although I was grieving, and immediately in the days after, it felt like my heart was ripped out, I still knew that she was somewhere, she was around, that we were connected, and that the love wasn't going away
Yeah.
and it's just taken a different form. And so, when you
Mm-hmm.
talk about, when you mentioned earlier about your therapist talking about the relationship that you have with Eric, it made me think like just over the past couple months, that was a question that I asked myself. Like, what is my relationship with my mom now? Because I still feel very much that I have a relationship with her and that it does change. It just evolves and it will
Mm-hmm.
continue and evolve as long as I am in this physical body on earth.
Yeah. It's it. Who knows how it will continue to evolve. The relationship is just continued love, obviously. In my case, as I mentioned, I still talk to him and tell him
Mhm.
about what's going on. I might even ask him, "What do you think about this or that?" Who knows if I sometimes we'll just get a feeling maybe of maybe there's an answer or maybe not. Or I also believe we can get some communication in our dreams. I've had some amazing dreams too. You hear people talk about those dreams that are just more real than here. They're just so real. So I think that's another way that we can relate, but it's very different, of course. But it is based on that love, like you say.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Dolores, I know you have some poems and some readings. I'd love for you to bring that in.
Okay, great. I do. I also, because you had mentioned to me about writing a letter, right? I
Yep.
think so. I'll start with that,
Perfect.
and then sure, I'll bring a couple from the book that I wrote.
Okay.
And while we're talking about it, I don't know if I should. Well, I will share them with you at one point. I've got Eric's
Okay.
drumsticks
Oh, okay.
here,
Okay.
so hopefully when
Perfect.
we get to that. But okay, dear Eric. 7.5 years is a long time, but sometimes it feels if you like you if you were to walk into the room, that it would be normal and that it would be like I had just seen you the other day. Without a doubt, our lives are not the same as when you were here, but I know everything does evolve. We have built our lives around our grief and are honoring you as best as we can. I hope you are proud of us. If you could come back for a little bit, I would love to sit in the family room like we used to and just listen to you practice your drums. I would love to go to one of your gigs with your band and watch you all play. The music's so loud, heart pulsing, watching your sparkling eyes as you look at me and give me a head nod. That smile, so unique, so special, and so sweet. If you were here, I'd love to go on a hike with you, just like we did for my birthday a few weeks before you left. You helped lift me up when I had trouble maneuvering the rocks. I'd love to go to the most beautiful outlook, overlooking maybe a valley in Hawaii or a national park in the US. I would love to see your face as you look around at God's amazing creation. If you were here, I would love to make a big meal and watch you enjoy it. You always made us laugh when you said you were going to get huge on a delicious meal. If you were here, I would have a philosophical talk with you, because we didn't have enough of those. I would want to hear more about what you really think, because I know your thoughts were pretty profound, but we never took the time to go that far into it. If you were here, I would hug you so tight, because I would never want to let you go. And if you were here, I would watch you play with your precious new niece, 16 months old, so smart and funny and charming like you. I would watch you interact with her, just being an uncle. I know you're always with her, and I know you're always with us, and I know you see all the amazing things that we've been doing. I don't doubt that you haven't missed anything. I just wish we could have seen your face while all these things were happening. Life never quite turns out as we expect, but I'm learning to have the grace to accept it and take what I've been given and spin it into gold, to let it make me the very best I can possibly be. So, as you already know, and as I've said a million times, I love you, my son. And one day, when the time is right, I will be with you again in full awareness, and we will all be together again. Love, Mom. So yes, he was a drummer, and I'm going to share. Well, drumsticks all over the house. We still have his drum kit. Don't have the heart to part with that.
Sure.
Maybe someone will come over, and he's got friends that can come over and play, or anyone, or my brother. So there are drumsticks still around. They're over there near the kit in his room that he had. There were quite a few. We gave some away to friends who wanted them, but there were a lot of them. But these are pretty cool because his girlfriend had etched the name of the band. I don't know how well you can see that on the end of the drumsticks, and these were right next to his bed. So really cool, really cool. And every so often I'll pick them up and I'll just go, and I'll say, "How was that, Eric?" so, so
Love it.
yes, yeah. So as mentioned, I had written the first book, which was more of a memoir, but I also then decided to take out of my journals, from my journals, I took a lot of poetry, not rhyming poetry, free verse poetry, and a few other little tidbits here and there, because when I would journal, I kind of meditate or pray and then allow myself to just express my feelings, and it would come out like what felt like poetry. So I thought, I can put these together in a book. So I did. This one's a longer. When I say longer, it's like 2 pages that are.
Mhm.
I mean, they're not. It's little pieces, right? But
Yeah, that's great.
so I'll go with this one, and then. Okay, this one's called "In My Mind's Eye." Again, I am here. I am right here. I see your dark eyes. They watch me. Your eyes smile. You are pensive. I remember that contemplative look. But you are not right here, right in front of me. I reach out, but my hand does not exist in the same world as your face and your eyes. There is a space. How do I cross that space? How do I connect my hand with your face? I long to touch you. I long to run my fingers across the facial hair along your jawline, or down the bridge of your nose, or across your dark eyebrows. I long to tug on your earlobe, just the gentlest little tug, just like I used to do when I drove you in the car when you were younger. You would look at me and ask why I did that, and I would say, that means I love you. That space, I wish to cross that space between the land of time and the world of no time. That beautiful place, that place of bliss, that place where we were together even before we came here. Home, that home, the one where you are right now, and where I will meet you again someday, one day, when it is time. Until then, I watch you in my mind's eye. I see you. You look at me. I smile at you, and you smile at me. You are quiet. I am still. We are apart, yet we are connected by that silver thread, my heart to yours. It is inseverable. We remain linked, locked, together, forever. I am here. I see you. I see you in my mind's eye. So that is what
I felt that.
yeah, I play music too. He introduced me to so much music that I hadn't really thought about before, and some of it is pretty awesome. And I'll just picture him when I'm listening to. I'll do nothing else but just listen and be with him, and so that kind of came out of that too, that I
Mm.
wrote. Yeah,
I really appreciate that imagery. I just pictured you, as you talk about touching his eyebrows, touching his nose, I just pictured that. And to me, I connect that with like the longing for that connection. Like we just want
yeah,
to touch them
yeah,
and just, oh my gosh, if we could
yeah,
hug them, it would mean the world.
absolutely. Even though I'll sound like, well, it's good he's here, and it's true, and I believe that, but it's still not. If you would give me the opportunity, if you said, what would you give to just have him standing there and you could, oh yeah, I'd give anything. Yeah,
My
absolutely.
gosh. Yeah, yes.
To have him make one of those jokes that it's with his dry sense of humor, it's like, okay, yeah, no, absolutely. Um, um, I will share one more, or if
Sure,
that's okay.
absolutely.
When you left this earth, I was so scared. I thought that maybe, I thought maybe that it was I would never know you again. That I would love to start this again because
Sure, absolutely.
when you left this earth, I was so scared. I thought maybe that was it, that I would never know you again. I'm so glad I was wrong. I still feel you all around in the cool breezes and the dampness of the rain. I see you in the clouds and in the rising sun. I hear you in the crash of the ocean's waves and in the music in every drum beat. Thank you, my son, for all you have given me and continue to give me. Short. But that is something that was part of the joy that started to come out, was in what I saw and felt him.
Mm.
When I know we all have these moments when I could look at a blue sky with big puffy clouds. I could just forever look at that. and it's a little bit of heaven, right? That sunrise or sunset is just, it's so deep and it just takes you somewhere else. And it's so amazingly beautiful. And it lasts for however many moments and then it kind of moves on. And, and then you got to go around your life and do your thing. But um, I, standing there right at the ocean, and I do feel that him with me because it's so beautiful, I guess, and because he's so beautiful, and because I feel the love, and so it's kind of all it all connects, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if you're feeling, I think of God as the creator, and so when I look at something that amazing, that's God, right? It
Mm.
and Eric's there too. I don't know. It's all connected.
It's
There's so much.
all
It's all
connected.
connected. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious, like, how do you hold Eric on a daily basis? Like now, 7.5 years later.
Well, it's still just such a. I wake up. There's a beautiful painting, which by the way, I've got 4 paintings around here of Eric that people who are amazing friends and amazing artists painted from a photo. So I've got one that a wonderful friend of mine painted of Eric and I, and we were at my brother's wedding, and he happened to be kissing me on the cheek, and I'm just, and she painted it anyway. So it's right there on the side wall. So I wake up and I turn to get out of bed, and it's right there. And so hello, Eric, and so this is what I'm doing today, Eric, and I'll go through. And then, of course, it's not every moment, every single
Mm-hmm.
moment, but
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you when I get in the car and I play music, boy, definitely he's there. A beautiful thing is that his band uh, did do a lot of recording of their music, so I can listen to that,
Mm-hmm.
talk to him about, that part right there on the drums is just, that was so great, and I mean, that's what I do. And, or if I'm listening to other music and I'll say, wow, this is really good. What do you think of that? I don't, so I just do that. And I mentioned my niece. I have I mean, his niece, my granddaughter. It's our first and only so far. And I'll I'll say, Eric, look, isn't, and she'll do something cute or funny or amazing, and I'll say, oh, look, Eric, isn't this great? And so I just include him. We do as a family. When it's, for example, if we're having dinner at the house because it's one of my other kids' birthday and we're doing dinner and a cake, Eric's there. We have this picture of him in the living room, and my other son, Nick, will always say, let's get a family photo. He'll always purposely position us in front of the photo. So Eric is still in the photo of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And so my family also includes, if someone has a dream about Eric, we're on a family text every day. Believe me, there's always something going on with our family text. Oh, this happened, that happened. Look at the baby, whatever, I had a dream about Eric, and this is what it was, and then we all respond to it, and we love it, or anything else. Oh, I went into the store, and the guy serving, his name was Eric, whatever. So we have that, and I'm so grateful for it. My family is all not just me, but they all include him. And in the evening, we do still have his room. It's not been used for any, it's not been needed for anything else. So there's his room. Before bed, I go sit in there for 5 minutes and tell him what was, about the day. And so he's not far gone. Believe, I don't know if I didn't do that, and if I didn't believe that, I don't know. I would be rather despairing
Yeah.
still and rather devastated still, I think.
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate that and like the sense of like he's still here and you include him. And that's something that I've realized is I still talk about her as
Yeah.
she's here and I don't shy away from her from talking about her and I appreciate hearing you do the same. And it feels like that makes a big difference. That, like, yes, they're not here in the physical,
Right.
but the impact, their presence, their essence is
Hmm.
still very much here. And it does a lot to be able to honor that and just talk about, I talk about my mom and you talk about Eric, and all right, let's take a
Yes.
picture. And
Yeah.
it's just it's just how it is.
Yes, yes. I think it's beautiful. I think it's important to talk about them, as you say. I think it's important to have these kinds of conversations. Uh, and that is a way of keeping them, their energy,
Mhm.
around, and keeping obviously their memory alive, or just them alive that way. And I love the word their essence. It's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dolores, as we wrap up, I want to ask, is there anything that you maybe would share to other people going on this journey, other people who are grieving, other people maybe who've lost a child specifically?
Yeah. I didn't know how I could live again, but I specifically mean how. I never said, I'll never live again. I'll never have joy again. I believed that maybe I would. I just had no idea how. So I think that if you set the intention that you will find that joy again, I know you will. I believe your intentions are powerful. If you set the intention that you will continue to have another kind of relationship with your loved one and you keep talking to them, you will. They're not, yes, as Chris and you and I have already said, we will always miss their physical presence. Always. That'll always just be a heaviness in our heart. But I believe, as you also said, Chris, that I live the best life I can, and I enjoy things in honoring Eric, because I know if if I had gone and he were here, I wouldn't want him to
Mhm.
stop living. I wouldn't want him to just be sad for the rest of his life. I would want him to have a wonderful time while he's here, and I'll be there watching him. So I
Mhm.
think that is how it is. It's just he's there and I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I take that back to what you said about beauty and joy, allowing ourselves to feel whatever we feel, but allowing for the space for beauty and joy as well.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Dolores, I want to thank you so much for this time. I want to thank you for bringing Eric into this space with us, and just thank you for who you are. Yeah, yeah. You're talking about heaven. That really connected with me,
Mm.
and that just to see like just how you hold life, death, the afterlife, um, is really uplifting to me. And I just appreciate you for sharing yourself, your story, and Eric with me for the hour.
Well, I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to do this. Thank you so much, Chris. And thanks to your mom. What is your mom's name?
My mom's name was Brindle Debt Major.
Brindledet.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you to Brindledet as well, for having such an amazing son, and also for her being with us as well. And, in our around, just like Eric's around. So thanks,
Thank
Chris, so
you.
much.
Thanks, Dolores. I'll go ahead and stop the recording.